Hey everybody, Sayre Nova again. And this week we're talking about another Harley Shovelhead. This one belongs to a friend of ours, and I don't know. There's something about this bike that I'm not a huge Harley person, but I see this bike and I'm like, that's a classic motorcycle. It's just a very simple, it's kind of what you think of when you think of a Harley, to be honest, for me anyway. What it is, it's a 1975 shovel, FX something. I think it's an FXE that's been modded for forward controls. I haven't run the numbers on it, so I don't quite know. But if you're out there and you're watching and you know, feel free to chime in. I don't take offense when I get corrected. But yeah, so this was mid AMF era. If you know anything about the Harley legend, you know that that was not necessarily their best time. They had quality control issues. AMF was a controlling company that bought the Harley Davidson, struggling Harley Davidson brand in 1969, and they started doing cost-cutting stuff, trying to, save the company, and that meant that the quality just got worse and worse and worse. That being said, you can get a nice bike from that era. Some of them were not lemons from the factory, and also every single last one of them is rebuildable into something worthwhile, much like British bikes of the 70s where they just were falling apart. You can still do repairs and fixes to the shoddy design and workmanship that was happening and make them into good bikes. This particular one came to our friend with a rebuilt motor, but it's an old rebuild. It's actually coming on 30 years since it was done. We looked at the build notes. It's got a newer Evo crank in it. It's been bored out. These originally were 74 cubic inches or 1200 cc's. It's been bored out to make it 60 over to make it an actual 1340 or 80 cubic inches, which is what the later Shovelheads were after 79, mid 79. So bigger bore. It's got a mild cam in it. It's got a S&S carb on it and a Super E carb, which is a modification, freer flowing thing. What else in there? It said the cam. It's got electronic ignition, a couple other things. And it's not designed to be this wasn't built as a drag bike or a particularly fast bike. It's just breathed on a little bit to make it a little peppy. The cam is fairly mild. The carb is definitely usable for the street. Big bore adds torque, not peak power. So it just makes it into a little bit of a nicer motor. This bike is, in my mind, is nice. A, because I like how black it is. B, I like how the chrome is there. It's making the presence, but it's just enough. It's not crazy. I'm not big into the bikes that are chromed out everything. It's been in the shop for a little while, so it's got a little bit of oil on it, oil residue, and some greasy fingerprints if you look close, and we haven't cleaned it up. And I personally like that a little bit. I like it to be a little bit ridden. I like it to look like a real bike. The paint's not perfect on this, and our buddy doesn't have plans to make it so. He wants to just ride this thing around and have a good time with it. And that's what I kind of like about it. It looks like a bike that has been well used, reasonably well taken care of, preserved, and we've gone through it to make sure it's gonna keep going. When this was in this time around, we actually discovered that there was a leaky head gasket that I had missed the first time. And so we redid the top end. While we had the heads off, I recut the valve seats and decarbed the whole thing because there's definitely some wear on it. It's fairly good. We didn't do a full rebuild. That was sort of a repair and do what we can while we're in here kind of thing. And it'll be good to ride for a while. And at some point down the road, it'll get a whole new top end on it again, pistons, and the rockers are making a little bit of noise, but the followers, excuse me, making a little bit of noise, but nothing terrible. Other things about this bike in this era, we see disc brakes, which is, super common to any modern machine. But look at these. This was a very early disc for Harley, and it's a tiny little rotor and a tiny little caliper. And, it worked. Needed two of them to work well. Not a light bike, this thing. It's a lot of iron and steel in it. The rear brake, similar, big fat honking caliper and a little bit of a bigger disc on there. So that rear brake is actually fairly effective. You got your mag wheels cast, which was definitely in vogue in the mid 70s. We've talked about how and some other videos, we've talked about how the super bikes, the more sporty bikes, were getting into these because they're stiffer and lighter and, generally better for sport riding. but that trend carried over to bikes like this. So, you know, this looks like an old bike now, but in its time, that was a modern touch on the classic Harley. Even in 1975, obviously Harley was staying with a classic feel. This was pre Willie-G Davidson really getting into selling the nostalgia. But even at this stage of the game, Harley knew that they were struggling against more modern Japanese machines, and much like Triumph, they decided to keep doing the same thing, but try to sell to people who wanted that sort of the continuation of the classic motorcycle. 4-speed gearbox, that was the norm up until, oh boy, I'm gonna get that wrong, but mid 80s. I believe 85 was the first 5-speed, but again, if you're a Harley nut out there, feel free to chime in with the true answer on that. I'm working off the top of my head. And yeah, what else? Fun fact, if you're watching this and you don't know why they call these a Shovelhead, I think we got to come around this side to see. Yeah, we do. But it is because the top of the motor looks like the back of a shovel, where you would have the spade mounted to the handle. So much in the way that Harley does things, they just called that the Shovelhead, much like the pan head looked like a pan. It's very straight lines on a curved top, and the knucklehead had some contours to it. Called it the knucklehead. So that's what that is. Help you out there if you're not sure what we're talking about when we say Shovelhead. Yeah, this was the last big twin Harley design before the Evo came out, and the Evo was when Willie-G and the rest of the employees bought the company back from AMF and really started making the company into what it is today, and still continuing on that arc. So, you know, very important motor. I tend to think, in my limited Harley knowledge, these motors sound very good. They sound a lot like what I think of as a classic Harley, probably because I grew up with these things riding by me in the streets at night. You hear them going by. But there's just something that just sounds so cool about it. You know, very classic. And with this, got mostly straight pipes here, a little bit of muffling, but you know, just enough to take the edge off. It's a pretty cool sounding thing. So we'll get some video. We'll do some shorts of this thing running in a little bit. Won't fire it up just now. I got to check on some stuff before we do. But yeah. So anyway, that's about it. If you love these things, if you love shovels, you know, let us know why. If you hate them, let us know why. I love to hear about that stuff. And if you agree that this is a wonderfully classic-looking motorcycle, you know, then you have good taste. That's all I can say about that. As usual, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. And yeah, we'll see you next time.